Shh, hey, it's okay. I'm right here. What happened?
A child doesn't cry like this for no reason. And when this millionaire finally walked in early and saw his baby's face, everything he believed about his own home shattered. The millionaire believed his home was protected by money, security cameras, and a woman he called his wife. What he didn't know was that every morning he left for work, his son began counting minutes instead of toys. And by the time someone finally listened, the damage had already been done. Before we continue, I want you to answer this. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this already has your attention, please like and subscribe. We share real feeling stories like this every single day. Now, let's continue. The house sat high above the road, tucked behind iron gates and perfectly trimmed hedges, the kind of place neighbors admired without ever really knowing. It was in Greenwich, Connecticut, where old money whispered and new money tried not to speak too loudly. Inside that house lived a man who had everything most people chase their entire lives. Except peace. Ethan Caldwell built his fortune before he turned 40. Tech acquisitions, private equity deals, long flights, longer meetings. His name carried weight in boardrooms from New York to San Francisco. When people spoke about him, they said words like disciplined, brilliant, untouchable. But none of those words followed him upstairs at night. For years earlier, the house had sounded different. Softer, lighter. There used to be music drifting from the kitchen on Sunday mornings, bare feet on marble floors, laughter that carried without trying. That sound belonged to Lena, Ethan's wife. And when she died, suddenly, cruelly, the silence moved in fast, like it had been waiting. Their son, Noah, was barely a year old when it happened. Ethan remembered holding him at the funeral, feeling the small weight of his body, thinking how impossible it was that someone so tiny would grow up without knowing the woman who loved him first. In that moment, Ethan made a promise he never said out loud. I'll give you everything, he thought. You'll never lack. He meant money. He meant comfort. He meant opportunity. He didn't yet understand that children don't measure safety in square footage. By the time Noah turned 4, Ethan had remarried. Her name was Claire. She was polished, articulate, well-spoken. She knew how to stand beside Ethan at charity events, how to smile just enough, how to ask about his day without really listening to the answer. Friends said she was good for him. Practical. Grounding. Ethan believed them, because believing them was easier than being alone. His schedule never slowed. Morning flights. Late returns. Sometimes he kissed Noah on the head while the boy was already asleep, sometimes not at all. He told himself it was temporary. That one day things would ease up. That providing was a form of love. And in the daylight hours, the house ran quietly. Too quietly. Noah learned early which floorboards creaked. He learned when the hallway clock chimed. He learned that when the front door closed and his father's car disappeared beyond the gates, the air in the house changed. Claire didn't shout. That was the thing that made it harder to explain. Her voice stayed calm, controlled, sharp in the way ice is sharp. Stop that, she'd say, when Noah asked for water too many times. Go sit, when he wandered too close. Big boys don't cry. Spoken without anger, without warmth. She never touched him where anyone could see. She never left marks. She left fear. Meals were quiet. Toys disappeared for days. Accidents were met with long, heavy silence that made Noah's chest feel tight. He started speaking less, eating slower, watching faces instead of cartoons. At night, in his room, the house sounded enormous. Noah cried into his pillow so no one would hear. He didn't know why his stomach hurt when the sun went down. He didn't know why he felt safer in the closet than on the bed. He just knew that when the house went dark, he felt smaller. And no one noticed. Because the cameras watched hallways, not hearts. Because the nanny had quit months ago. Because Ethan believed quiet meant okay. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, unremarkable in every way, that Marisol arrived. She was hired through an agency. Middle-aged. Soft-spoken. The kind of woman who carried herself like she'd raised children who weren't hers. Claire barely looked up when she entered the room. The boy is sensitive, Claire said flatly. Keep him occupied. Noah stood halfway behind the couch, gripping a toy truck with one missing wheel. He looked up when Marisol knelt to his level, not smiling too quickly, not reaching out. Hi, she said gently. I'm Marisol. Noah didn't answer. That was when she saw it. Not bruises, not tears, but something else entirely. The way his shoulders stayed tight. The way his eyes flicked toward the stairs. The way a 4-year-old already knew how to disappear. Marisol had seen that look before, and for the first time since Lena's death. Someone in that house noticed that the silence wasn't strength at all. It was a warning. The first thing Marisol noticed was how quiet the house became the moment Ethan's car left the driveway. Not peaceful quiet. Not afternoon quiet. It was the kind of quiet that felt supervised. Claire stood at the kitchen island, scrolling on her phone, her heels clicking once against the marble floor. He doesn't nap, she said without looking up. If he says he's tired, he's lying. Marisol glanced down at Noah. He was standing beside her, fingers clenched in the hem of his shirt, eyes fixed on the doorway that led to the living room. His toy truck was missing again. Okay, Marisol replied calmly. Maybe we can read instead. Claire's eyes lifted slowly. Not angry. Calculating. He needs discipline, she said. Not stories. She turned and walked upstairs, her footsteps measured, deliberate. When her door closed, the house exhaled, but Noah didn't. He stayed frozen. Marisol crouched beside him. You're safe right now, she said softly, as if saying it might make it true. Noah didn't answer. She led him into the living room anyway. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, catching dust in the air. A room meant for laughter, for play. But Noah didn't touch anything. He sat on the edge of the couch, feet dangling, back straight like he'd been told not to move. Marisol opened a picture book. What's your favorite color? She asked. Silence. She waited, counted her breaths. Mine's blue, she added gently. Like the ocean. Noah's lips parted, then closed again. It wasn't shyness. Marisol knew the difference. This was practice, the kind learned over time. Later that afternoon, she heard it. A sound too soft to echo. Noah was in his room, door cracked just enough to let light spill into the hallway. Marisol passed by with folded laundry and stopped. She listened, sniffling, controlled, careful. She knocked lightly. Noah. The sound stopped instantly. I just want to bring your clothes, she said. I won't stay long. No response. When she pushed the door open, Noah was sitting on the floor beside his bed, back pressed against the wall, knees pulled to his chest. His face was red, eyes glassy but dry, like he'd wiped the tears away fast. Marisol's heart clenched. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered before she could stop herself. Noah flinched. That was when Claire appeared behind her. What are you doing? Claire asked, her voice smooth, almost bored. Marisol stood slowly. I heard him crying. Claire's mouth curved into something close to a smile. He cries to get attention. Noah stared at the floor. He was alone, Marisol said carefully. He prefers it that way, Claire replied. Then, sharper, don't you? Noah nodded. A small, quick movement. Too quick. Claire crossed her arms. See? He's fine. She turned to Noah. You made a mess in here. Again. Marisol looked around. The room was spotless. I didn't, Noah began. Claire stepped closer. Did I ask you to speak? The words were quiet, polite, and devastating. Noah's mouth snapped shut. His shoulders curled inward like he was folding himself smaller. Something shifted in Marisol then. Something solid. Mrs. Caldwell, she said, keeping her voice even. Maybe he just needs. Claire's eyes hardened. You're here to clean and... She turned back to Noah. Sit on your bed. Don't move. Noah obeyed instantly. That night, Ethan didn't come home until nearly midnight. Marisol stayed late, wiping counters that were already clean, listening to the house breathe. Claire was out. Dinner, she'd said. Marisol passed Noah's room one last time. The door was open. Noah was standing on a chair by the window, peering out into the darkness. The moonlight caught his face, pale and serious beyond his years. Are you looking for your dad? Marisol asked softly. Noah nodded. Then, barely audible. He comes home when it's quiet. Marisol swallowed. Do you want to wait together? Noah hesitated, then nodded again. They sat on the floor, backs against the wall. Minutes passed. Then more. Marisol. Noah whispered. Yes, baby. Did I do something bad when my mom went away? The question landed like a blow. Oh no, she said quickly. No. That was never your fault. Noah stared at his hands. Then why does everyone leave? Before she could answer, headlights swept across the walls. Noah jumped to his feet. That's him. Ethan walked in minutes later, tie loosened, phone still in hand. He smiled when he saw Noah. Hey champ. Still up? Noah ran to him. then stopped short, glancing over his shoulder. Ethan frowned. What's wrong? Nothing came. I'll put him to bed, Marisol said gently. Ethan nodded, distracted. Thanks. As Marisol tucked Noah in, she noticed something new beneath the pillow. A folded piece of paper. She waited until Noah fell asleep. Then she unfolded it. It was a drawing. A small stick figure child. A big stick figure man outside a house. And inside, another figure, dark and looming, with no face. Marisol folded the paper carefully and slipped it into her pocket. That night, for the first time, she didn't sleep. Because now she knew. This wasn't sadness. This wasn't adjustment. This was a child learning how to disappear. And Marisol had to decide, very quickly, whether she was going to stay quiet or become the reason everything changed. Marisol began paying attention in ways cameras never could. She noticed how Noah stiffened whenever footsteps approached from upstairs. How he froze when Claire entered a room, like a mouse sensing a shadow. How he spoke freely only when he thought no one important was listening. Ethan, meanwhile, remained convinced that order meant safety. Breakfasts were brief. Kisses were rushed. Conversations were postponed. Big meeting today, he said one morning, adjusting his cufflinks. I'll be late. Claire smiled from across the table. As always. Noah pushed cereal around his bowl. He didn't look up. Ethan bent down. Be good for Claire, okay? Noah nodded. Marisol watched from the doorway, her chest tightening. She wanted to say something. Anything, but words felt dangerous here. Too sharp. Too risky. After Ethan left, the house returned to its other rhythm. Claire set rules that shifted by the hour. What was allowed in the morning was punished by afternoon. What was ignored one day became unacceptable the next. Noah learned to stop asking questions because answers changed depending on her mood. When he spilled juice, Claire sighed loudly and wiped it herself, slowly, deliberately. You're lucky, she said calmly. Some boys don't get second chances. Noah stared at the table. Marisol clenched her jaw. One afternoon, while folding laundry, Marisol heard raised voices. Not shouting, but something worse. Claire's voice was low. Tight. I told you to stay out of that room. I just wanted. Noah's voice cracked. Marisol moved quickly. She found Noah standing in the hallway, eyes wide, hands clenched. Claire stood in front of him, blocking the stairs. What's going on? Marisol asked. Claire turned. He was touching things that don't belong to him. It was just a picture, Noah whispered. Marisol saw it then, a framed photo in Claire's hand. Lena, smiling. Claire's lips pressed thin. That woman is gone. Marisol stepped forward. That was his mother. Claire's eyes snapped to her. And I am his present. The silence stretched. Go to your room, Claire said to Noah. No dinner. Noah didn't move. Marisol felt something burn in her chest. Mrs. Caldwell, she said carefully. He hasn't eaten much today. Claire smiled again. Cold. Controlled. Then he'll learn. Noah turned and walked away without a word. That night, Marisol sat alone in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She thought about the drawing. The way Noah asked if his mother left because of him. The way fear had replaced curiosity in a 4-year-old's eyes. And she thought about Ethan. A man who believed cameras, money, and structure could replace presence. The next morning, something changed. Noah didn't come downstairs. Marisol found him curled up in bed, burning with fever. His cheeks were flushed. His breathing shallow. I don't feel good, he whispered. Marisol checked his forehead. We should tell your dad. Noah's eyes filled with panic. Please don't. Why? He hesitated. Then, quietly, she'll be mad. Marisol straightened slowly. She called Ethan anyway. He arrived home early. Worry etched into his face as he carried Noah to the couch. Why didn't anyone tell me sooner? He asked. Claire stood nearby. He exaggerates. Ethan looked at her. Then at his son. Something flickered, brief, uncertain. I'll take him to the doctor, Ethan said. That night, after Noah fell asleep, Ethan stood in the hallway, staring at the security monitor. Screens showed clean rooms. Quiet spaces. Order. Everything looked fine. And yet, he knocked on Marisol's door. You've been around him more than anyone, Ethan said. Is he okay? Marisol hesitated. This was the moment. The kind that split lives in two. He's very quiet, she said carefully. Ethan nodded. He's always been sensitive. Marisol met his eyes. Sensitive children usually feel safe somewhere. The words landed heavier than she intended. Ethan frowned. Are you saying? I'm saying he's afraid, she said softly. And children don't become afraid without a reason. Claire appeared behind him. This is inappropriate. Ethan didn't turn. Is it? The room felt smaller. I think you should trust your wife, Claire said sharply. Ethan finally looked at her. Really looked. The smile didn't reach her eyes. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He replayed moments he'd dismissed. The way Noah stopped running toward him. The way he flinched at sudden sounds. The way he stopped talking about his mother. At 2:13 a.m., Ethan sat up in bed. And for the first time since Lena died, he wondered if the danger had been inside the house all along. By morning, a decision had formed, quiet, deliberate. He wasn't ready to accuse, but he was ready to watch. And what he was about to see would make it impossible to look away ever again. Ethan didn't say anything at breakfast. That alone unsettled Claire. She noticed it in the way he lingered longer than usual, the way his eyes followed Noah, not with impatience, but with something closer to concern. Noah sat quietly, spoon hovering over his bowl, waiting for permission that never came. Claire cleared her throat. You're not leaving? I canceled my morning, Ethan said simply. Claire's eyebrows lifted. That's new. So is being home, he replied. The words hung there. After Ethan left the room, Marisol felt it, the shift. Claire's movements sharpened. Her jaw tightened. Control slipping always made her restless. By mid-morning, Ethan was gone again. Or so Claire thought. What she didn't know was that he hadn't gone to the office. He'd gone to the guest house on the edge of the property, the one no one used anymore. Inside, Ethan sat alone, laptop open, security feed muted. He told himself this was precaution. Nothing more. The first hour showed nothing unusual. Noah coloring quietly. Marisol folding laundry. Claire moving through the house like a shadow, measured, restrained. Ethan exhaled. See, he told himself. You're imagining things. Then Marisol stepped outside to take a call. And the air inside the house changed instantly. Noah looked up from the table. Claire stopped walking. The silence stretched too long. What did I say about touching that? Claire asked calmly. Noah froze. His crayon rolled off the table. I was just. Stand up. Ethan leaned forward. Noah stood, small hands trembling. You don't listen, Claire continued, voice low. That's the problem. I listen, Noah whispered. I try. Claire bent slightly, close enough that the camera caught only part of her face. Her voice didn't rise. It sharpened. Then why do you always make things difficult? Noah's lips quivered. I miss my mom. Something snapped. Claire straightened. Her face hardened in a way Ethan had never seen. That word is not allowed in this house. Noah flinched like he'd been struck, though nothing touched him. I told you, she said. Your crying days are over. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Claire turned the chair away from the table and pointed to the corner of the room. Sit. And don't move until I say so. Noah obeyed immediately. His shoulders collapsed inward. His eyes fixed on the floor. Ethan stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. He watched, heart pounding, as minutes passed. Noah didn't move, didn't speak, didn't cry, just sat there. When Marisol returned, the change was immediate again. Claire softened, smoothed her hair, picked up her phone. Your break ran long, she said casually. Marisol looked at Noah, her face drained of color. Why is he sitting there? He needed time, Claire replied. Marisol crossed the room without asking permission. She knelt in front of Noah. Sweetheart, she whispered. You can get up now. Noah hesitated. His eyes darted to Claire. Marisol stood slowly. Ethan needs to know. Claire laughed. About what? About everything. Ethan shut the laptop. He didn't confront Claire that night. Instead, he watched more. Over the next 2 days, patterns emerged. Not cruelty loud enough to echo, but control sharp enough to scar. Words chosen carefully. Isolation disguised as discipline. Fear masquerading as structure. And always, Noah shrinking. On the third night, Ethan came home early again. Claire was in the living room. Marisol was upstairs bathing Noah. Ethan sat across from his wife. How long, he asked quietly, has Noah been afraid of you? Claire didn't blink. That's a strange question. Answer it. She sighed. You're projecting. He's a difficult child. Emotional. He's 4, Ethan said. He's spoiled. Ethan leaned forward. By who? Silence. Marisol appeared in the doorway then, Noah asleep in her arms. Ethan stood immediately. I'll take him, he said. Noah stirred as Ethan carried him upstairs. He tucked him in gently, brushing hair from his forehead. "Daddy," Noah murmured. "I'm here." Noah's hand tightened around his sleeve. "Don't go." Ethan swallowed. "I won't." Downstairs, the house felt colder. Ethan returned to the living room. "Marisol," he said, "thank you for tonight. You can go home." She hesitated. "Sir." "I know," he said softly. "I know now." When she left, Ethan turned to Claire. "You lied," he said. Claire crossed her legs. "You spied." "I protected my son." "From what?" she snapped. Ethan's voice dropped. "From you." Her composure cracked. "Just for a second. You think you understand?" she said sharply. "You weren't here. You never are. That ends now." Claire laughed, too loud. "You'll choose her word over mine?" "I'll choose my child," Ethan said. The silence that followed was final. That night, Ethan slept on the floor beside Noah's bed. For the first time, he heard his son breathe deeply. And for the first time since Lena died, Ethan understood something devastatingly clear. Protection doesn't come from watching. It comes from staying. And tomorrow, everything would change. Morning came softly. Sunlight crept through the curtains, painting slow lines across Noah's walls. Ethan woke before his son did, still on the floor, his back stiff but his heart heavier than it had been in years. He watched Noah sleep, really watched him this time. The way his fingers curled near his face. The way his brow finally looked smooth, unguarded. Ethan sat up and made a decision he should have made long ago. Downstairs, Claire was already dressed. Perfect. Controlled. As if nothing had shifted. "We need to talk," Ethan said. She smiled faintly. "About what?" "About you leaving." The smile faded. "You're being dramatic," she said. "You always do this when you feel guilty." Ethan didn't raise his voice. "Pack your things." Silence stretched. "You'll regret this," Claire said finally. "Maybe," Ethan replied. "But my son won't." By noon, Claire was gone. No shouting. No scene. Just a quiet exit. Exactly the way she'd done everything else. The house felt different immediately. Not lighter. Honest. Ethan called his attorney. A therapist. The school admissions office he'd been postponing for years. He canceled meetings without explanation. For the first time, his calendar bent around someone else's life. That afternoon, Marisol returned. She froze when she saw Ethan sitting on the floor, building a tower of blocks with Noah. "Is everything okay?" she asked carefully. Ethan looked up. "Better than okay. If you're willing to stay." Marisol smiled, tears filling her eyes. "I'd like that." Weeks passed. Noah changed slowly. Not dramatically. Healing rarely announced itself. He spoke more. Laughed, quietly at first, then freely. He started sleeping through the night. He began drawing again. This time, the pictures were different. One evening, Ethan found a new drawing taped to the fridge. A house. 3 figures inside. All with faces. Ethan knelt beside him. "Can you tell me about it?" Noah nodded. "That's you. That's Marisol. That's me. And Mommy." Ethan asked gently. Noah thought for a moment. "She's in the sky. But she knows you stay now." Ethan pulled him into his arms and held on longer than necessary. Months later, Ethan turned down a promotion. People were shocked. He didn't care. He started picking Noah up himself. Cooking dinner. Sitting through tantrums instead of avoiding them. He learned that love was not a reward for good behavior, but the foundation that made it possible. On Noah's 5th birthday, there was no grand party. Just cake. Balloons. A backyard full of laughter. As Noah blew out the candles, Ethan realized something quietly profound. Success wasn't the empire he built. It was the childhood he chose not to miss. That night, after Noah fell asleep, Ethan sat alone in the living room. The cameras were still there. He unplugged them. Some things, he knew now, were meant to be felt, not monitored. Thanks for watching to the very end. If this story stayed with you, maybe it's because we've all missed something important at some point. And if you believe stories can remind us to stay, to listen, to choose presence over distance, then staying connected here truly matters.